So you see here the artwork that adorns the top of my bookcases. A Captain America insignia poster, Batman, Shield, because of course I love Shield, Green Lantern, and then those pictures, Captain America, Spider-Man, and Iron Man. As you can tell, I'm a little into superheroes. So here, of course, we have a little stuffed beanie dragon. These are just some really cheap Nardo blocks that I got at the dollar store one day. These are my Shield cards that I won in some sort of giveaway, I can't really remember, but they are cards that spell out Shield with all of the different characters, and this was from when this show was first starting. My Hawkeye plastic cup, because it was one of the only pieces of merchandise I could find with Hawkeye on it after the first Avengers movie. You may recognize this mask. And no, I'm not just referring to the fact that it's actually a Nightwing mask. I'm referring to the fact that you may have seen this on the face of a literary superhero. Yeah, Captain Literary. These big books here, well, these two are coloring books. I have a Batman and Spider-Man giant coloring book that I don't ever color in. I have a couple of comic books that I'm not going to totally pull out. Avatar: The Last Airbender, the art of the animated series. Modo, Ember's End by Arthur Slade. These are both Comic-Con magazines from the year that I went to Comic-Con. I will fix that later, so obviously this is not the most stable of setups for this shelf right here. I need to get something stronger than this cup to hold up all of these really big books. So the classic Marvel superheroes is a nonfiction just kind of about superheroes and the superhero genre. I have the first volume of The Amazing Spider-Man. This is a whole ton of the original comics all piled into one, and I have volumes 1, 2, and 3. Avatar: The Last Airbender, The Lost Adventures, and this is the best comic book that they have ever done. I also have all 3 volumes of The Promise from Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then the Spider-Man handbook, which is full of all of fun facts about Spider-Man and the Spider-Man comic books, which I started flipping through one day and then found out that Gwen Stacy died and abruptly stopped, because at that point I had no idea that Gwen Stacy died, because this was like 5 years ago. Yeah, good times. And over on the other side of the shelf, this does not have a whole lot of books on it. This right here is a collection of 3 Alexandre Dumas novels. It is The Three Musketeers, The Man in the Iron Mask, and The Count of Monte Cristo. I bought it primarily for The Count of Monte Cristo because it was the first unabridged copy of this book that I ever came across, and that's what I really wanted. These 3 rubber duckies came from my children's librarian from the library where I grew up. So right here we have my Owen Colfer shelf, and this is on my middle shelf of the 3 bookshelves, and I like to call this sort of my centerpiece bookshelf. This is where, I don't know, a lot of my favorite series go. And right here, very prominently, we have the Artemis Fowl folder. This, if you have never heard my story about the time that I went to Comic-Con, I went to the Owen Colfer panel, which was for the last of the Artemis Fowl books, The Last Guardian, and I was actually asked to play Holly Short and read her parts in the panel as part of the performance for the panel. So, like, I got to meet Owen Colfer, and I got to play Holly Short, and I got to stand up in front of the panel, and it was all recorded, but the only part that actually made it to the Disney Channel, because of course it was the Disney Channel, it was a 365, the only part that actually made it to it is the very end when we all shouted out Disney 365. So if you ever see that, I am, like, you can see the back of my head. I'm the one with the really short brown hair, and you can probably see the tag of the back of my shirt because I had to turn my shirt inside out, and then the tag was just like sticking out. So anyway, this is the folder from that, and it's got the script in there that you can see, and it was signed to Amanda from the desert. Thanks for being Holly, from Owen Colfer. And the Two to the Desert thing was a joke. I was completely starstruck, and he asked me where I was from, and I had only just moved to the Southwest, and I stupidly replied, "I'm from the desert." So that has gone down in history, at least in my family, because I am now known as Amanda from the desert to Owen Colfer. The books on the shelf, the wish list. My pet rock has lost an eye that I need to glue on, and it just fell off there, so woohoo! The Artemis Fowl files. Artemis Fowl, bet you didn't see that coming. Artemis Fowl, the Arctic Incident. Artemis Fowl, the Eternity Code. Artemis Fowl, the Opal Deception. Artemis Fowl, the Lost Colony. Artemis Fowl, the Time Paradox. Artemis Fowl, the Last Guardian. memories. Now, for those of you who know your Owen Colfer and your Artemis Fowl stuff, you will notice that I am actually missing one of the books of the series, and that's Artemis Fowl, The Atlantis Complex, Half Moon Investigations. This is one of the Owen Colfer books that is in contention for my very favorite. I love this book. I love everything about it. The Supernaturalist, Airman, the Artemis Fowl graphic novel. Now, this is what I consider my girly shelf. This cool little lantern here. I've just stuck a couple of magnets on there, my Big Ben and my London tour bus. This is a watercolor of Cinderella's slipper that I got from Book Rat Misty. She had a giveaway for one of her fairy tale fortnights, and I won this from that. Also got some book promotion stuff for Alethea Contis' Woodcutter Sisters series. The Two Princesses of Bimari by Gail Carson Levine. The Princess Bride by William Goldman. Enchanted by Gail Carson Levine, A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett, The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, The Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Of course, no girly shelf is going to be complete without a Jane Austen. Enchanted by Alethea Contis, which is also signed really pretty. Austenland by Shannon Hale, and Wildwood Dancing by Juliet Marillier. I think this is my favorite of all of the girly book covers because it's so gorgeous. This is my fantasy shelf. Fantasy. Don't you just love it? I have a mustache pin that I picked up at Comic-Con, and that's just sitting on my shelf right there. I have a glass dragon, a little stone unicorn. These are all perfect for the fantasy shelf, of course. This is a clay set that a friend of mine made for me for a birthday one year. It says, "Danger, do not stop. Dragons dwell here," with dragon prints in there. Love that. My super elegant, pocket-sized and leather-bound The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, of course. The Silmarillion. A paperback version of The Hobbit, which technically belongs to my family, not me, but I'm the Tolkien fan, so I get it on my bookshelf. The Fellowship of the Ring, and I swear that this is my most beat-up book that I own. This book went through a lot. After they had just announced that the movies were coming out, my aunt got this for me for my birthday because she loved The Lord of the Rings. I had the hardest time getting through it because you start with Tom Bombadil, which is a really long chapter. There is a lot to get through before you actually get to the story, and this is before I started reading pretty much any fantasy. Redwall, the Redwall series was the most complicated books that I had been reading up to that point, I think, and so this took me a really long time to get through. As soon as the movie came out, I watched it, fell in love with Strider, realized that I was like maybe 100 pages from his introduction, and flew through the rest of the series. So that is why that's so beat up. I was probably trying to read this for 8 months, toting it around on several vacations, and it survived many a backpack trip, let me tell ya. The Two Towers, The Return of the King, and as you can see, those last two books are in pretty pristine condition compared to The Fellowship, and that is because I just flew through them so fast. Book of Lost Tales, Volume 1, The Eye of the World, Book 1 of the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan. The Great Hunt, Book 2, The Dragon Reborn, Book 3, The Shadow Rising, Book 4, The Fires of Heaven, Book 5, Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages. Calling on Dragons by Patricia C. Reedy. This is the third book in the Enchanted Forest Chronicles. Here There Be Dragons by James A. Owens. This is the first book of the Chronicles of the Imaginarium Geographica. The Tale of Despereaux by Kate DiCamillo. Half Magic by Edward Eager. This is a very old book, and it is very beat up, but it is also a first edition, and that is super, super awesome. Magic or Not by Edward Eager. And directly beneath my fantasy shelf, you can tell because there is the corner of the mustache right there, I don't even know what to call this shelf. It is the bright colored cover shelf. This is a very eclectic collection right here. These are all of the books that I have by Anthony Horowitz and all of the books I have by Brian Jakes. So we'll call it, what? The eclectic British author shelf? Would, it could work. A couple of stone figurines. This one's an owl. This one is a triceratops. A bunny that is larger than all of the other stone animals. So close to the horse, you know, that's kind of terrifying right there. Alex Rider, Stormbreaker, the graphic novel. Stormbreaker by Anthony Horowitz. Book 1 of the Alex Rider series. Book 2, Point Blank. Book 3, Skeleton Key. Book 4, Eagle Strike. Book 5, Scorpia, Archangel, and Snakehead. And then we have the Diamond Brothers Mystery Series by Anthony Horowitz. The first book is The Falcon's Malthacer, Public Enemy number 2, 3 of Diamonds, South by Southeast, Salamandastron, Legend of Luke, Martin the Warrior, and it now occurs to me that I do also have Lord Brocktree, but I loaned it to my sister. Mossflower, Matameo, Mariel of Redwall, Loamhedge, Taggerrung, Pearls of Lutra, Triss, Marl Fox, The Long Patrol, The Bellmaker, Outcast of Redwall, and of course, the classic, the one, the only, the original, Redwall by Brian Jakes. Alright, let's move along. I am very proud of this shelf. This is my science fiction shelf. It has Star Wars figurines. Yeah, I'm not gonna do a Chewbacca growl, because I can't. And when I try, it's just pathetic. So these are cards of characters from the Hunchback Assignments series. And of course, what is sitting behind them? The Hunchback Assignments by Arthur Slade, of course. We are gonna have to move Han and Luke out of the way for the time being. Found, book 1 in the Missing series by Margaret Peterson Haddix. This one does not have a cover, but it is Sent, the second book in that series. Sabotaged, Horn. And they all still have their price tags from the thrift store where I bought them, which is kind of tacky, so sorry about that. Stargate Atlantis, Blood Ties, because it's Stargate Atlantis, but it also has Daniel Jackson. Alien Secrets by Annette Curtis Claus, I, Robot by Isaac Asimov, The Caves of Steel, The Robots of Dawn, The Naked Sun, Heir to the Empire by Timothy Zahn, and I managed to find an autographed copy. That's pretty cool, right? Okay, I think these 4 are going to be a little too tricky to just pull out on a whim. So this is the first 4 books in the Dragonback series, also by Timothy Zahn. There's Dragon and Thief, Dragon and Soldier, Dragon and Slave, and Dragon and Herdsman. Larklight, a rousing tale of dauntless pluck in the farthest reaches of space by Philip Reeve. Think Treasure Planet, but in Victorian-era London. Starcross, a stirring adventure of spies, time travel, and curious hats. Also by Philip Reeve. And back here we have some more Star Wars memorabilia. This is my Ever Afters bookshelf. You may recall a while back I had the Ever Afters blog party to celebrate the release date of Enemies and Endings, the final book in this series. These dolls were made by my sister, and they were featured on that blog party. But this is Lena Lamorelle from the series. This is Rory Landon, the heroine of the series. And this is Chase Turnleaf, my favorite character from the series. Of Giants and Ice, of Witches and Wind, and I do have some beautifully signed copies of Sorcery in Snow, and the grand finale of Enemies and Endings. So that is my Ever Afters shelf, and this is the last of my sort of central themed shelves. I have this one, the Owen Colfer shelf, which is above it, and then the one with the dragon clock, which is on top. So those are kind of my, hey, look at these pretty shelves. Some more knickknacks. I have here the Spiderwick Chronicles, and those are all boxed, so I won't pull them out. And the Chronicles of Narnia, which are also boxed, so I won't pull them out. I have Mustache. This is the first book in the Dragons in Our Midst series by Brian Davis. This is a Christian fiction series, but it's about kids who turn into dragons. How can you really pass that up? This is Raising Dragons, The Candlestone, Circles of Seven, and these really have gorgeous covers, which is another reason that I was really drawn to them in the first place. And Tears of a Dragon. This is one of the 2 shelves that kind of balance each other out. Notice, bookend, bookend. And they're looking at each other, if you didn't catch that. A World Without Heroes, the first book in the Beyonders series by Brandon Mull. My Pendragon books are backwards. Give me a second. Okay, Book 7 of the Pendragon series by D.J. McHale. This is the Quillen Games, The Pilgrims of Rain, Raven Rise, and The Never War. Indivisible by Ryan Hunter, Candleman by Glenn Dakin, A Crooked Kind of Perfect by Linda Urban, and A Crooked Kind of Perfect by Linda Urban. I have 2 copies of this because it's a really fun book, and I'm probably going to give one of these copies to somebody someday. Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians by Brandon Sanderson, the last of the really great Wang Doodles by Julie Andrews Edwards. Yes, the same Julie Andrews from The Sound of Music and Mary Poppins. The Anybody's by N.E. Bodie. Holes by Louis Sacker. The Supernaturalist by Owen Colfer. The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. I'm gonna take you down to the next level. This is kind of my awkward in-between shelf. Most of them are books that I really, really love, and some of them are books that I haven't actually read yet. The Wig in the Window by Kristen Kitcher. The Monsters of Morley Manor by Bruce Coville. The Monster's Ring, Jeremy Thatcher Dragon Hatcher. The Horizontal Man by Michael Dahl. This is the first book in the Finnegan's Wake series. The Worm Tunnel, The Ruby Raven, The Viking Claw, and The Coral Coffin, the fifth and final book of the Finnegan's Wake series. The Sisters Grimm Book 3, The Problem Child by Michael Buckley, The Hero's Guide to Saving Your Kingdom by Christopher Healy, The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funke. I think this is actually my favorite book by Cornelia Funke. Dragon Rider by Cornelia Funke. And I just found out that we're getting a sequel to Dragon Rider, and I am very, very excited about that. Inkheart and Inkspell. A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L'Engle. A Wind in the Door. A Swiftly Tilting Planet. Many Waters. Steelheart by Brandon Sanderson. I also have the sequel, Firefight, but I've currently lent it to my dad, and I'm trying to get him to read it because he loved the first book, but he won't read the second book, and it's driving me nuts. So Leo and Raph here are guarding one of my two TBR shelves, Boomtown, Chang's Firework Factory by no one in particular. Blackguard's Moon by George Brian Polivka. The History of Atlantis by Lewis Spence. The Mystery Reader's Walking Guide to England. Interworld by Neil Gaiman and Michael Reeves. The cover is very informative, but this is Kon-Tiki by Thor Heyerdahl. This is a very pretty copy of The Two Towers by J.R.R. Tolkien. Ripped and Other Adventures by Angie Lofthouse. Again, a thrift store find with no cover. This is Nicholas St. North and the Battle of the Nightmare King. That's by William Joyce. The Phoenix and the Carpet by E. Nesbit. The Enchanted Castle, also by E. Nesbit. Passin' Through by Louis L'Amour. Tom Sawyer Abroad and Tom Sawyer Detective, because these are two Mark Twain novels that I didn't know existed. The Mystery of Atlantis by Charles Berlitz. Flying Dutch by Tom Holt. Sahara by Clive Cussler. The Rover by Mel Odom, and this is kind of pathetic because I started reading this book for one of the booktubeathons, and for some reason I haven't picked it up since, so I'm almost done with this book. It is in possession of one of my very favorite bookmarks. I should read that soon. And here is the rest of my Madeline L'Engle collection. The Young Unicorns, Troubling a Star, A House Like a Lotus, Unacceptable Time, The Arm of the Starfish, Dragons in the Waters, and Meet the Austins. Now this is what I call my pretty TBR shelf. Ivanhoe by Sir Walter Scott. Hidden Mickey by David W. Smith and Nancy Temple Rodrigo. The Clue of the Linoleum Lederhosen by M.T. Anderson. Tuesdays at the Castle by Jessica Day George. Midnight Magic by Avi. The Castle in the Attic by Elizabeth Winthrop. This is the entire Gates of Atlantis series. Banshee at the Gate by Wendy Knight. Magicians of the Deep by Jacqueline Weist. Guardians of the Gates by Laura D. Bastian. Madness Behind the Throne by J.R. Simmons. Secrets of the Mine by Julie Caldwell. Battle for Acropolis by Mikey Brooks. Paranoia by J.R. Johansson. This is book 2 of the Nightwalker series. I have the first book, Insomnia, on my Kindle app on my computer. The Good Thief by Hannah Tinty. Becoming Jinn by Laurie Goldstein. Dreamkeeper by Mikey Brooks, book 1 of the Dreamkeeper series. The Dungeoneers by John David Anderson. The Selection by Kiara Cass. A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. The Crossover by Kwame Alexander. The Unwilling by C. David Belt. This is the first book in the Children of Lilith series. It's about vampires. 5 Out of the Pit by Holly Anderson. 5 Out of the Dark by Holly Anderson. The Actor and the Housewife by Shannon Hale. The Yellowbird Literary Magazine, which sadly is no longer in existence. They published my poem Gallantly Garrulous a couple of years ago. Ta-da! Bards and Sages Quarterly, which published my short story To Slay a Dragon, being an instructive guide by the misadventurous knight Sir Roland Springsfield. As you can see, there is my name right there. Now this is the annual anthology of Bards and Sages stories called Bardic Tales and Sage Advice. My story To Slay a Dragon was republished in this anthology because I won the Best Author of the Year award from the Bards and Sages Publishing. They have a yearly award for their magazine, and they have different categories for different stories and authors. And hey, if anybody's curious, I have another story being published in Bards and Sages this October. It's called The Curious Concoctions of Thornton Thoreau, so go ahead and check that out. And they do that contest every year, so I will be up for another nomination if anybody wants to go and vote for me. I'm sure I will have more details about that as the time comes closer.